Way high, and up she rises.
Row, boys, row, boys, row.
Way high, and the blocks is different sizes.
Way high, Sally Brown.
All right, today we're going to be looking at a very quick match of Carlos Mendez's. Similar to the last match of his that we looked at, it's also from the 2018 Atlanta Winter Open. This one is going to be another showcase for one of Carlos's favorite techniques. And we'll see that they start out with a little bit of feeling out, some grip fighting. They make their grips here. Carlos is going to be looking for a couple easy ankle picks or knee taps. So he's got his same side grip at the collar here. If he can get control of the far ankle and then drive that collar grip across and bring his opponent's upper body past the either the ankle for a ankle pick or the knee for a knee tap, he'll be able to finish the takedown there. But we'll see his opponent does a good job of reading that and keeping that far leg away, his right leg. You see as Carlos goes to get the knee for the knee tap, he steps that leg back there. So since he's having trouble finding it, Carlos sets back for a guard pull. There's a second there in the pull where he does post his foot against the hip. His foot for a second found the hip there. If his opponent had been overcommitting, driving forward during the pull, Carlos would have had an opportunity there to Tomonagi to just sort of bring his opponent over top using that post against the hip and take him either straight overhead or off at an angle. But his opponent doesn't drive forward very much and so falls down into almost a closed guard here. And we could see his opponent doesn't quite give up the full guard on the pull. He manages to stuff Carlos's left leg in his hip here. So Carlos has one leg coming over the back but doesn't quite have closed guard. So we're going to see him work to get the grip on the back of the belt. He did this in the last match of his that we looked at. It's a really effective way to reinforce, particularly in this position. So we can see now, let's move it a little bit further forward, that he's got that grip on the back of the belt. That helps to control the posture since that anchor on the back of the belt, the arm comes over top of his opponent's shoulder, which makes it difficult for his opponent to move his head and shoulders up away from Carlos to posture in the guard. It's also in this case, because Carlos isn't able to close his guard, it creates effectively a loop around his opponent's body combined with his leg that's coming around on his opponent's left side. So since he can't close his guard to have a full encirclement of his opponent's body with his legs, he's effectively done so between the combination of the over-the-shoulder back belt grip and his right leg coming around his opponent's left side for the half of the closed guard there. It's a very effective control. I mentioned in the last video, aside from controlling the posture, it also gives Carlos an anchor point that he can move himself relative to his opponent based on. So he can use that to sort of pull and move his upper body around to get into different angles for attacks. It's also just a very difficult grip to break. More or less impossible to break a grip that's on your back without being able to move your full body away from the person. You just don't have any weapons facing backwards that you would be able to break that grip with. And we can also see here in this still that Carlos is starting to wrench up his underhook. So his opponent's arm is in front of that. He's found the space between his arm and his side under the armpit there, and he's going to wrench that up and then bring it towards himself. So he's going to bring that wrist to his chest, and in doing so he's going to expose his opponent's arm. He's going to straighten that arm out, and he's going to bring his opponent's wrist to his shoulder to start attacking an inverted arm lock here, or a sliding arm lock. It goes by a couple different names. And we can see that as soon as he brings that wrist towards his chest, he's not quite in the finishing position yet, but he's already applying pressure downward. So while it would be difficult to finish at this point, because he's essentially pulling that elbow down into his own chest at this point, it's really important to maintain that pressure to control the arm. It's a very finicky submission. It's easy to lose. There are a couple points that sometimes opponents are able to turn their arm. Sometimes you lose the control of the wrist between your head and shoulder. Sometimes you just miss the point along their arm relative to their elbow to get the proper pressure applied for the hyperextension. And we can also see that Carlos is pinching his shoulder towards his head and his ear side of his head towards his shoulder. So it's sort of a similar pressure to talking on a phone with no hands, and that's really important to maintain as much pressure as possible there between the side of his head and neck and his shoulder there, to keep his opponent's wrist in that sort of clavicle pocket there. As long as he can keep it there and keep the arm straightened, he's able to apply pressure and attack this submission. But if he were to lose that, he would lose the inverted armbar attack. Now we'll let it move a little bit forward. Okay, so now he's found the position to finish the arm lock. So now he's on his side along the mat, instead of being on his back or almost sort of setting up on his butt like he was just a moment ago. And now what that does is it allows generally empty space between his opponent's elbow, which is right around there, just inside of the control that Carlos has with his arm overwrapping with the underhook. There's space between his opponent's elbow and the mat now. That allows Carlos to apply pressure down toward the mat, and that's where the hyperextension is going to come from. So if he was trying to finish this flat on his back, he would be pulling his opponent's elbow straight into his chest, and there wouldn't be enough available space to apply the hyperextension. The arm just wouldn't be able to flex enough to become painful. But because he's opened up this hollow cavity under the arm, now there's plenty of space for that arm to move into to apply hyperextension. And now we'll continue it along, and we see he very quickly gets the tap there. Again, that's one of Carlos's A-game techniques. Very, very good at snatching that anytime you give him the opportunity. It's a very opportunistic submission. Like I said, it can be finicky, it can be easy to lose, but if you get good at it, there's a lot of opportunities at it. It tends to be low risk, and when you do find it, the tap comes very quickly. Again, Carlos Mendez is my friend and instructor. He's the head instructor and owner at One Academy in Athens, Ohio. So if you're ever in the area, feel free to stop in and get some rolls in with us. If there are any players, matches, or sequences you'd like to see me talk about, please let me know and see what works.